One of the artists on our team made this incredible illustration, and I think it really speaks to the next little TED Likes talk that we're about to have with Dr. Benjamin. And it shows an EKG line, a normal EKG line, and then a magnifying glass held up to it. Because when you look between that healthy EKG line, what you see underneath is all these factors that influence our health. And it turns out that only about 20% of our health is coming from our clinical care. And the remainder, around 80%, is coming from some combination of what we can call the social determinants of health. Some call them social drivers of health. Some call them risk factors. There's a variety of names. But these different pieces, our access to grocery stores, the types of jobs that we have nearby us, our transportation, these pieces really shape who we are on a daily basis. And absolutely, national elections and national frameworks create some environment for these to take place. But a lot of the big decisions about whether we have these different amenities in our neighborhood or opportunity to access a good education, those are local decisions. They're decisions made much closer to home by locally elected officials in elections where, frankly, not enough people are voting right now. So we wanted to bring an expert on exactly that topic to come share a bit about it with us. And we could pick no one better than, hold on, there we go, Dr. Benjamin to be with us. And Dr. Benjamin is going to zoom in on Oklahoma City for this. Before I was here at Vot-ER, I was an educator. And what I can tell you is that the same things she's about to share about Oklahoma City are what I saw at a school in Atlanta across the federal penitentiary, in the 9th Ward in New Orleans, and in the neighborhoods south of the Jazz District in Kansas City. These are universal factors that are impacting our country. And as she's speaking, I want each of you to think of a neighborhood near you that represents. Dr. Benjamin is a professor at the University of Oklahoma, excuse me. And she's an expert on local politics. And without further ado, I will hand it over to Dr. Benjamin.
Thank you so much for having me. Let me try to act like I know how technology works, even though I do this in my job. Let's see. Okay. I'm going to share my screen and present. Okay. So again, thank you so much for having me, and thank you to everyone who organized to help me look super professional today. I appreciate it. I do want to talk about Oklahoma City, but to Aaliyah's point, I really do hope that you think about a community close to you where things like this might be happening. And so as I talk today, I want you to think about two questions as we move through the chat, which is, are there any environmental hazards in your neighborhood? And that might be yes, that might be no. And also, how far do you have to drive to get to a grocery store? So I live in the east side of Oklahoma City, and I'll be honest with you, before I moved here, it wasn't a place I ever thought about, but it really is home and I do love it. But we have some challenges in my neighborhood, and the 4 zip codes that make up the heart of the east side, they have some challenges. And so, let's see. We are in the top 10 zip codes in Oklahoma with the highest poverty rates, and we're also among the blackest zip codes. And so I did live here by choice. And so I think you'll kind of hear that as I talk, that I really do love my community. Oh my goodness, I don't know why my thing isn't working. Okay, but you can see, right, that there are some connections here, right? So we know that there is a connection between race and poverty. And so, these are just basic, data points. Oh my gosh, I don't know why it's doing that. Okay. But in addition to some of those statistics, it is unfortunate that I work at the University of Oklahoma and our health center is literally, I can walk to it. It's in our neighborhood. And despite us being so close to a top university with world-renowned healthcare, we are facing some challenges. And so you can see the 2 zip codes. I live in 73117, but you can kind of see where we are, and you can see where that relates to the county, or how we relate to the county, how we relate to the state, and how we relate to the nation. And it doesn't look good, y'all. I don't know. Another challenge in our neighborhood is that we have a recycling plant. And I think in the slides, which I think will be made publicly available, I did just drop a story in there because there was a huge expose just this morning in the Oklahoman about this problem. And I love the story. And if I would have had time, I would have incorporated it more. But what I hope you take away from the story, if you get a chance to read it, is just how much our community cares about one another and our neighborhood. And you'll hear from one of our community neighborhood leaders. And it's just such a great story just to see the activism that I'm going to talk about today firsthand. And what it is just south of my house, so I live on 9th Street, and just south of here on 4th Street, there is a recycling plant, and it's been here for a long time. And if you read the article, you can see the history of it, but it comes out of Jim Crow zoning. So to Aaliyah's earlier point, zoning is a big deal in local elections that most people don't care about, but zoning determines what can and can't be in your community. If something is zoned only for single family, only one family can live, it's a single family home. If something is zoned for multifamily, you can have a duplex or something like this, right? So these are big choices. But what happens is, and I don't know, it could happen while we're on this call today, is there will be these extremely loud booms, and they're super jarring, they're super annoying. And in the neighborhood that's closest to it, they're saying that it's, lowering their property values. And but we don't know what else it's doing to us health-wise, if I'm being honest. And so what are we doing, right? We're not just taking it laying down. Part of it is, we have a great community network here. And so I highlighted this image thanks to the help of people at Vot-ER to make my slides look good. But one thing is we have a board that works on issues in our community and trying to really redevelop our community ethically. And so that's what that photo is from. But we are working with our community leaders, so our city council, the city staff has been dedicating time to this. We most recently had a meeting with our city staff and our city council member in March. We have more scheduled. But this is a place where, even though local decisions are so important, we are constrained by the state and federal system that we exist in. And so even though, the city manager, our assistant city manager, fire department, police department, we're all working on this issue, the city is limited in their actions in some way, right? So one thing that they can do is amend the noise ordinance. So that means every time the loud boom happens, the place is the recycling plant will be fined. That's a limited, they will just put that into their operating budget. Honestly, that's not an effective strategy. We can work with the university, some of my colleagues to maybe do a study about the noise so we can really understand the impact. We can try to enforce it through the state, which is probably at this point the best choice that we have. There was a deadline at the end of last month. I haven't heard anything, and the city staff was going to meet with the plant because they're trying to figure out what's the best way to move forward. We can also refer it to OSHA, right? Is this a violation? I think the other piece related broadly to what we're talking about here today is this environmental racism? And so what are some of the other courses of action that we can take? But again, what I hope you take away from this is that, yes, there are challenges in our community, but because we have such great community members, we're working on them. And again, that it's a group effort that we need the community and our elected officials and our city staff to sort of step in and help us work on it. And so that's sort of a sad story. But what I want to talk about is maybe a better story. And I'm really excited because even this week, I did make some changes to the slides because we had some good news this week. So in addition to us being so Black and in some ways facing some poverty challenges, we also live in a food desert. And I don't want you to think that that's everywhere or that it's only here, right? But we have 2 new grocery stores and they really represent, one just opened this week. So you'll see the market at East Point is our great celebration this week. It was such a great grand opening. But we have a full service grocery store that should open by the end of the year. But these partnerships came together from our community, our city, and local nonprofits essentially. So it really is a public-private partnership. And surely, again, we're not the only food desert in the state. I found this cool map thanks to NPR. So even you might think about where you're located and you probably also live near a food desert. And so this is a challenge that's facing lots of communities, but we care about food deserts because it is part of our social determinants of health, right? That access to fresh, healthy, affordable foods should be a human right. It should be something that we all can do. And so that's why I want you to think about the last time you went to the grocery store, how far did you have to drive? And for my community right now until Wednesday, it was pretty far. And some of it meant even where I live, that the closest grocery stores are actually in a town next door. So it's not even that we have to leave our neighborhood, we have to leave our city limit to go to the grocery store. And so again, but because of good community relationships and our great elected officials, we are engaging on this issue. And so what we, for both the recycling plant and the grocery stores, it just required a lot of effort. And I'm so thankful that we have good elected officials that listen to us. But we are having 2 new grocery stores. Again, the Market at East Point, which is a true community driven model. We have a Restore Farms that they're a partner in this. And so the young people are the ones who said 6 months ago, let's get a market on 23rd Street in the heart of our neighborhood. And it opened on Wednesday, y'all. And it was so great. I felt emotional when I was there. I cried a little bit because it's really shows what can happen when the community invests and the city invests in one another, and that we work together to do this. My council member, which you'll see in the next slide, is working on building some relationships with the health center. Again, it's not lost on us that people drive from all over the state to come to our neighborhood to receive good health care. And so what can we do to work on that together? And again, we are working to find a solution for the recycling plant. This is Council Member Nice, our city council member. She's a great advocate for our community. And even as someone who studies local politics and what it can do, I cannot overemphasize that she goes above and beyond. And even this semester, I worked with a group of students with a think tank, and we did a podcast about food deserts. And it was so powerful the way our community just came together to say yes to our students. But if you have a chance, and I can actually add this to the slides if people want it to access to our website and our podcast, we've released one episode with Council Member Nice. But the one thing I think that's really important and that she's really modeled for me is that she really views her role as a leader in our community as a servant leader, and that her job is to inform us so that we know the places that we can engage and act. And so she really is modeling advocacy for us. And so one thing that is really important to think about is that everything I've just shown you, these are the results of local choices, right? Back in the day when the city council of Oklahoma City at some point said, we can put a industrial recycling plant here. That's where they chose where it went. And I don't think it was random, right? And again, I linked the story that goes more into that. But we also have a right today to say it's not what we want. Now, will we get the outcome we want, which would be shuttering the recycling plant or moving it somewhere else? I don't know. But I know that, again, with the help of our council members and other elected officials, city staff, we can work together to find a better solution than the current one. And I believe that we will get there. And again, even with the grocery stores, you might not think, you might live in a food oasis, right? So I obviously work in Norman, and Norman is a food oasis. When I lived there, there was a lot of choices about where to go to the grocery store, lots of options, organic options, affordable options. I really, even where I lived within a mile or two, had maybe 4 grocery stores that I could choose to go to. That's not the case where I live now, but that's also a choice that cities make, right? So when they set the zoning, when they agree to deals, when they decide what's going where, those are choices that are made. And that is why it is so important that we engage in local government. And engaging doesn't have to only be voting, right? Again, we have organized these community meetings. We can attend those types of things, but city council meetings are open to the public. And even in quarantine times during COVID, they've been online. And so you can engage, and it's a way for you to stay informed. But again, we are working to build and make our community better. And again, by the end of this year, we will no longer be a food desert, technically, by the definition. And so now we're working on those next steps, which are, just because a grocery store comes, it doesn't mean that we change our habits, right? If we're used to always going to the town next door, it requires a little bit of effort to focus and start shopping in our neighborhood. So we'll be working on those things. And again, one of Council Member Nice's big initiatives, in addition to trying to get the recycling plant situation taken care of, is trying to partner with the health center. Sorry that you can't see the slide very well, but that's what it is, because it is an opportunity. And it shouldn't be that our neighborhood has a hospital, a diabetes center, world-renowned healthcare experts, and we have worse health care outcomes than our whole state and the neighborhoods that are just across the freeway from us. So I will leave it there. And I do appreciate you all taking the time to listen to my talk. But what I hope you know is, or what I hope you take away again, is that with community engagement, we can bring change. And I hope that even if you've never thought about Oklahoma very carefully, that you think about it a little bit differently and know that we're working to try to make our community better, just like everyone else. So thank you so much, y'all.